What if everything that you found out about your family is a lie? Would you go out of your way to try find the truth? Well, that's exactly what Richie Ryan and Duncan MacLeod did do. So stay with us and you'll see exactly what they went through.
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, born 400 years ago in the... Well, no, not really. That was a TV show called Highlander. So, just listen to Rockin' at the Movies with me, Adrian Paul, and Shane Comley-White, and you'll learn some interesting facts.
Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Shane Comley-White and you're with me at Rocky at the Movies. And today's episode around Highlander, this is now the second episode that we're talking about, and this one is called Family Tree. And the whole idea about this one is it's one of the most emotional early episodes of Highlander itself. Obviously, it's the second episode in the entire series, but this is where we start to feel a little bit more emotion about Richie Ryan, and also we start to see the origin, if you want to call it, of Duncan MacLeod and where he came from and how he became immortal in a way. So we go down this rabbit hole with Richie Ryan. He wants to find out who he is and where he comes from. Now, remember in the first episode, he was kind of adopted by Duncan MacLeod and also Tessa Noël, because I do believe that there's multiple reasons why I feel that he was adopted. And I think the one that I do believe first and foremost is because Duncan wants to keep an eye on him and to make sure that he doesn't leak the whole thing about who immortals are and the sword fight that he witnessed and all that to the media and create a lot more mayhem for Duncan that he doesn't want to actually be part of. But then obviously down the line, we start to see exactly why he does. So Richie then starts to see that he is actually part of something amazing, which he's never really had, because he's an opportunist thief who's been living on the streets and trying to make ends meet by himself and having to do everything for himself to try survive. But here he is living with Duncan MacLeod and Tessa Noël, and they are doing exceptionally well. They're very loving. They've got a happy home that they've built up together, and they've welcomed him with open arms. And it's just been amazing for Richie Ryan. So Richie then obviously wants to try to figure out where he comes from. So then he goes on his own investigation to try hunt down his parents, because he knows that he was adopted or put into foster homes, and he wants to try to figure out. So he puts on this disguise that he was part of the adoption agency and a delivery guy, and then he goes and tries to figure out, and he manages to get hold of his file where everything is located with what he is about and who his parents were. So he goes down this rabbit hole. He then hunts down or finds out that his mother's name is Emily Ryan, and his father's name he doesn't know yet. So they're looking for whoever they need to, and he goes to his own hometown, and Duncan takes him under his wing and starts to support him and tries to do the same thing for him. So this is where the emotional side of Duncan comes in. But yeah, let me talk a little bit more about Richie. Richie kind of starts his search. Like I say, he got the file. He then hears all the advice that we get from Duncan. Now, Duncan isn't just the cool guy who is running around with the sword fights, and he's immortal, which makes him even cooler. He actually now becomes a little bit of an emotional support or a father figure for Richie. And he gives him the advice of what he should and shouldn't look for. Don't get his hopes up. And obviously the message in between the lines is you never know what ghosts you're going to be digging up. And this is how it all starts. Richie then goes back to his hometown. Duncan is there to support him, and they go on this quest to try find Richie's parents. Long story short, you must go watch it. Okay, I'm not going to give you every single little detail, but I'm going to give you enough that you can be excited for it. Richie comes across a guy after showing photos of his mom and everyone to everybody in the area that he thinks he grew up in, or he knows he grew up in. He comes across an old gentleman named Mr. Tubbs, who used to own a candy store that Richie and his mom used to go to on a regular basis, to where he cashed her check. Now, I think we all know that check would be for, we assume it's for child support, if you want to call it that, but I think it's part of the adoption agency or even the foster agency's welfare when it comes to the payments. We learn that she dies, and then Richie learns or finds out that Jack Ryan is his dad as well. So he goes down that path to try to find his dad. But as that happens, Duncan then is brought back. This brings back a lot of memories for Duncan. And he then starts to remember about his home life. But we don't see his birth, obviously. What we see is his immortal birth. And this is where every immortal has to go through a tragic accident or death to become immortal. Now, every normal person who dies gets born, they live their life and they die. That's cool. But if you don't have the immortal gene, then you will never become immortal. And the only way that you can really become immortal is if it is through a tragic death, not a normal natural death like old age. It would have to be through a battle where you die in battle, or you being robbed and you shot, or you are in a car accident, or whatever else it might be. That is what actually kickstarts your immortality once you are resurrected. And so we go down Duncan's storyline when it comes to that, and it takes us back to 1622 in Scotland, just after Duncan was injured badly and died in a battle in Scotland there. And his dad, Ian MacLeod, kind of disowned him because back then everyone was so superstitious and they thought that anything that's unnatural like this is demonic. So he disowned him, kicked him out of the home and his village, not out of hatred for Duncan, but more out of fear of the unknown. And how can someone who he has seen that was dead, and the midwives and the doctors or the medical people in the village confirmed that he was dead. Now all of a sudden there he is, no injury, wide awake, and everybody's completely confused. And this is where we hear Ian say, "You are not my son." And then Duncan, in his Scottish accent, which is fantastic. And if you want to know why he keeps a Scottish accent or why he used a Scottish accent, go and watch the interview that I had with him. It's on my channel and you're going to enjoy it. And this is where it always sticks with me. Duncan is almost running up a rocky embankment or side of the hill or pathway with his bow and arrow in his kilt, long hair, very messy, very tatty, and shouting to his dad, "Where do I come from? Where do I come from?" Now, I'm not going to do the Scottish accent because I'm terrible at accents, but go and watch this one, you might enjoy it. Right, one of the other actors or characters that are introduced to us is Jack Ryan, by his normal name, or his current name that he's going under at the moment, which is Joe Scanlon. And he is working at a casino and he's dealing the table, he's dealing with all of that and doing the cards and whatever. I'm not a gambler, so I don't know all the terminology, so please excuse me if I get it wrong. So it starts off with Joe dealing all the cards and actually running a table, and then the owner of the casino comes to him and basically fires him and threatens him because one of the patrons of the casino actually went on a winning streak and won so much money. But now Joe has to recoup that money because casinos don't want to lose money. Well, back in those days, it was very, very weird how casinos were kind of run. It's like, you better not lose any money, but if you do, you got to pay me back. And they can win their money, but you, being the dealer, this is what I'm assuming, you have to actually pay the money back to the casino itself. So Joe is sent on his way and he has to try to figure out how to get the money back. So obviously he's, again, a little bit of a chancer. He just works day to day trying to figure out what he can do just to survive. Not an easy life, doesn't have a proper full-time job or any kind of property that he can use or anything else like that to pay back. So he's a little bit of a con man, and he tries to figure out how to get the money until Richie lands at his door. He doesn't want to admit that Richie was in his life, so he pretends that he knows nothing to start off with. But then eventually he realizes, okay, Richie's got money. He's got or connections to money. So then he starts to play this game, and he cons Richie in a way by saying, yes, he knows the family, he was very involved, when in actual fact, he left Emily Ryan long time ago, and that's why it was just Richie and Emily. But he was pretending, and he gives a whole big long story, which, go watch the episode. Like I said, I'm not going to give you all the details, but I'll give you enough so you can enjoy it, or at least understand it a little bit better. But then, yeah, so Richie starts getting involved in this entire thing, and Duncan realizes that there's something wrong, and he starts to investigate Joe because he knows he's been around for a very, very long time, and he knows what is wrong, and he knows that people are con artists, and he knows that things don't just fall in your lap as if it's all perfect and hunky-dory and everything's going to go back to normal. So Duncan, unlike Richie, who who's in this hope, he's in the space of hope, and I can only imagine what it must be like to be in that kind of situation where you've been searching for such a long time, and all of a sudden the answers are there. It's presented to you right there. It's great. It's all going to be perfect. But at this time, Richie's a little bit blinded by his own hope. Duncan realizes that it's not exactly what it is, and he wants proof. He wants to believe Richie. He wants to hope for Richie, hope for the best for Richie, but he knows that there's something else there. And then that's where he discovers that Joe has been lying, and he's been holding a secret that he doesn't really want to let everybody know, and it's something to do with all the criminals in the criminal underworld, and he's once again like an opportunist, and that's where he steals from Duncan and Tess as well. The whole thing plays out where people don't really like Joe. They don't really want Joe around. Richie is hoping for the best, and Joe then gets Richie into trouble because Richie then gets held hostage, if you want to call it that, by Clinch. So this is where Duncan needs to intervene, and he then tracks down exactly where Joe's been and where Richie is, and then this is where he comes to save the day, like Duncan will almost always do. Things sometimes don't always work out the way he wants, but he's confident, and now he knows he's untouchable. So he walks into this casino where Clinch and where his boss is. Richie's there, Joe's there, and everyone else is there. This is the whole big thing, and Duncan has to then go and save the day. So he protects Richie first and foremost. That's exactly what it is. And then secondly, he takes what was stolen from him, and he recovers that. But by doing all of this, he embarrasses Clinch so badly that Clinch thinks that he's this big, strong, muscle guy that can fight whoever, and not knowing that Duncan has had so much more experience, first of all, and also knowledge. His fighting skills and knowledge has developed over the last 400 years, or almost 400 years. And so he's learned stuff from the Japanese, he's learned stuff from the Mongolians, he's learned stuff from the Scots, he's learned everything. So this is where it kind of shows a little bit more skill and a lot more wow. And even Clinch has no idea what just happened. He's like, what is that? What kind of moves are those? And Duncan becomes untouchable. So this is a classic Highlander episode where everything reaches a point and everything is quite crazy and a little bit of chaos, but ultimately Duncan swoops in and saves the day. It might not be a traditional way, it might not be the most normal way, if you want to call it that, but it actually works out quite well. After Richie being captured, Duncan then goes in and saves him after Joe tries to save him, because Joe kind of feels that, crap, he's put this guy in a little bit of a situation where he didn't actually mean to. He didn't think it would go this far. So he attempts to save the day, but he can't. But ultimately Duncan does. So there's no big flashy sword fights. There's no big quickenings. There's no Immortal fighting an Immortal. But this actually proves what kind of person Duncan MacLeod actually is. And this is where the morality of him comes in and the humanity of him. And I'm going to say this straight from now, and I'm sure you're going to hear me say this on almost every single episode. I love the character of Duncan MacLeod because of his just the way he is, just the way he looks for hope. He fights through all these different challenges and all these battles where we are dealing with the same kind of battle itself every single day. And it's just not the Immortal one, but we are dealing with all of these struggles, all of these challenges. And for him to be a role model to Richie, to guide Richie, I almost took that very personal and said, okay, well, I need that kind of guidance. I need someone to look up to in that sense that might not be a human, might not be a typical superhero like a Superman or a Batman or anything, but it's someone who's more normal, who doesn't jump around in a cape, doesn't have all these fancy gadgets other than a beautiful sword right here that that he survives with. But he looks for the good in people. He tries his hardest. He's got good morals. He doesn't steal. He doesn't cheat. He doesn't do all these things that a lot of people in today's world do. And he's, in my view, a very good role model and someone I've always looked up to. And that's why it was actually very exciting to speak to Adrian Paul, who played Duncan MacLeod. And this is why I'm going on this whole tangent with the Highland thing, because it means so much to me. It was actually part of it was a massive influence in my upbringing. All right, so some interesting things. Duncan kind of sees himself in Richie. He sees that he is this lost person who was cast out from his family. They were both displaced. They kind of lost their identity and they didn't know what to do. And all they wanted to do was just find out who they were and where they were going and what the whole life meant, what they were. And this is why Duncan gets so angry when Richie's threatened, when Richie gets into trouble, and especially when someone tries to take advantage of Richie's hopes and dreams of a family. And that's exactly what Joe does. All right, so there's a lot of foreshadowing that happens here in this episode. So actually quite a few in the previous one as well as this one, when it comes to the arc or the storyline of Richie Ryan. So fans, myself included, pick up on tiny little details that actually happen in this episode itself. And you start to wonder, like, what does this mean? Where is it going? Is it true? Now, if you know the lore of the entire Highlander world or the actual environment that they live in, you'll start to pick up on all of these. And especially if you do a rewatch, you'll be like, I can see exactly where this was going. I know this one. So I'm not going to give those away to you right now, especially if you have not seen any of these episodes before, this entire series. If this is your first time watching it, fantastic. Just keep in mind that there are so many things that you need to look out for, and it actually tells you exactly what is going to happen to almost every single character and where it's going to go. It's very interesting, and how Richie is involved with Duncan's life the whole way through, and what Richie actually does for Duncan, and how he inspires Duncan and befriends Duncan, and what Duncan actually needs as well. All right, so this episode actually just proves that it's not all about the sword fights. There's a lot more depth, a lot more emotion that can actually come out. So not every single episode is going to be about how Highlander has to pull out his sword and fight another bad guy and actually see who wins and who's the strongest one. This is more about the emotional side. This is more about the character driven. This is more about the emotional side. It's a lot more character driven, and it's actually surprisingly mature for a brand new series, especially back then. It's a lot more comical, especially when Richie goes from the comical side of stuff to more of the, okay, this is serious. I have to now try to find my family. It's emotional. So yeah, it kind of deepens who Duncan is and gives us a little bit more insight into how Duncan comes about and how he struggled with his own family and his own being kicked out of his tribe, the Scottish tribe itself of the MacLeods. So it's quite a deep episode, I must say. Obviously, looking at it the first time, it's not the nowadays emotion of all the drama and all that, but it touches you if you actually watching it and listening to how Richie suffers and how Duncan has suffered as well. All right, so what do you think about this episode? If you have watched it, please drop us a comment and let me know what your thoughts are, and share your experiences. Did you know what's going to happen to Richie? Don't give it away for all those that haven't seen it yet, but do you know how Richie's going to impact Duncan's life in the future? And did it touch your soul and your heart? Was it something that you looked up to as well? I'd like to know, and I'm sure everyone else would also enjoy knowing as well. And here's another question I've got to ask you. Was Joe a true villain? Or was he a man just struggling to survive? All right, everybody, thank you so much. Before I do go, I want to let you know that this channel is going to be dedicated to everything Highlander for now, and we're going to be expanding on a whole bunch of different other series down the line, much further down the line, but I just want to get everybody involved in what we do. We are going to be setting up a whole range of different episodes and opportunities for you, so you want to keep a lookout to that. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, because if you don't, you're going to miss out on all of these exciting elements that are going to be coming up. We're also going to be delving into various different things when it comes to the music from these episodes. We're also going to have interviews with all the different, or as many of the different characters that appeared in Highlander in the entire series. And I've got a couple lined up, and you do not want to miss out on those ones, because they're fantastic characters that you love to hate and you hate to love as well.